Happy Wednesday, everyone. I think this is the first time I'm coming to you on a Wednesday. So, thank you for joining me. For anyone who is new, I am Carla Nelson, and I want to welcome you to our incredible conversation tonight. We are going to have a dynamic lady. You're going to learn so much from her. I'm going to put up a video that will formally introduce you better than I could. Then we will bring this dynamic woman out and we will dive right into our conversation on funding via grants and serving the undersized plus size market. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Linda Peavy. Oh my goodness. Linda, you know what? I'm looking at that video and I'm saying to myself, we need to dive right into fashion. Oh my goodness. You are so gorgeous. Thank you for joining
Oh,
me
thank you
tonight.
so much, Carla. It is an absolute honor for me to be with here tonight. I am so excited to share what knowledge I have with your audience. So I'm grateful and blessed to be a part of the show this evening.
Oh, I'm the one that's honored because we're going to have an incredible conversation. We're going to talk about funding via grants. We're going to talk
Yes.
about fashion. So let's just dive right in. I want everybody to know, if you haven't had a chance to look at any of the information I have, as a consultant, Linda has secured over $17 million in funding and business proposals for clients to date. Some of your clients have been the Biden for President campaign, Danny Glover, Delroy Lindo, whom I love,
Yeah.
Nicole Ari Parker, Boris Kojo, and more.
Yes.
You must enjoy this. $17 million.
Yes, it's a lot of work, but it is so amazingly thrilling to be able to serve
Mm-hmm.
clients in need. I've worked predominantly with nonprofits, but also with small businesses.
Wow.
And it just gives me great joy to know that I have just a little piece in these organizations being able to flourish. So it's been my great honor to serve in the way that I have for the past 14 years now. I've owned my company. It doesn't seem like it's been that long.
Mm.
Sometimes it seems like it's been longer, but
Yeah, but
it's
that's amazing.
an honor.
You're saying, look at that, 14 years and $17 million. So we can expect that to triple in the next few years. Yeah, when we're gonna bring you back.
Yes,
Yeah,
let's speak it into existence.
exactly. So what are some of well, let's back up. We're talking in a different landscape. COVID, what are some of the things that have changed because of COVID with the grant industry?
So COVID changed everything. Before COVID-19 occurred, typically the recipient of a grant would be a nonprofit organization. So people are accustomed to receiving grants. But
Mhm.
when COVID came along, it was almost as if it really peeled back this layer of vulnerability for small businesses. So all of a sudden, because of COVID-19, I think all of us know of some business that went under because they could no longer serve their clients. Some of them were forced to shut down. And so all of a sudden, you had the vulnerability of us as small businesses come to light. Whereas before, you typically thought of nonprofits as receiving grants. So here we are being vulnerable. And so what happened is that you had many foundations as well as larger corporations, your Fortune 500 corporations, your Fortune 100 corporations saying, look, there are so many small businesses going under because of COVID-19. What can we do to
Mm-hmm.
help them? We don't have a safety net, right? So many nonprofits have a safety net of a grant, but not small organizations and small businesses. So what foundations decided to do, along with many corporations, is they decided to pool money. They decided to create grant money specifically for small businesses. So now the landscape is totally different, whereas before it was unheard of for small business to receive grant money. Now, at this particular date, it is easier, not easy, but easier for small businesses to receive grant money because of the foundations and the corporations providing resources for small businesses to recover from COVID-19, but also to continue flourishing. So the landscape is totally different to the benefit of small businesses.
Uh, and what are the top five things you say that people should know about grants, whether they're writing the grant for their business or their nonprofit, or whether they're having someone like you to write the grant?
I would say, without question, understanding that grant writing is a process. Like I've been writing for a long time and I've learned some of the tricks of the trade, and it's a process. So too many people, they see a grant, they pull it off of the website and they complete it, they send it in, and they wonder why they're getting rejected. But it is a process that you have to go through. You need to know a lot of information about, first of all, what are your needs? Where is it that you need funding? You
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to know where your vulnerabilities are, where do you need to put the money, and then you have to be able to match up your mission statement with the mission statement of the foundation that you're seeking funding from. And so
Mm-hmm.
often there's a disconnect there where oftentimes an organization will see, okay, this grant is available from like the Gates Foundation or some large foundation, and they start to apply for it without realizing that it may not be for them. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to match up your mission with the mission of the foundation that you're seeking funding from. So that's one. I would also say just understanding that there are elements to receiving grants that have like nothing to do with writing, and one is relationship building. It is so key to be able to establish a relationship with the foundation or the funder, to be able to meet with them, to be able to let them discover who you are, learn more about your service or your project. And that way, in those conversations, you also have the opportunity to know more about the grant and exactly, what that organization is looking for. So that relationship building piece, um, that is just, oh my gosh, that is so important. Secondly, it is about really being able to tell your story.
Mm-hmm.
Tell your story, you can tell it better than anyone else. So to really make that grant application stand out, it's about deciding how you're going to show how unique you are. Whatever project or service you have, showcase in that application that you can do it better or different than anyone else. Because at the end of the day, grant writing is very competitive. The market of getting grants is super competitive. So, what is going to set you aside from all of the other organizations that are submitting grants? It's going to be how well you tell your story and indicate, yes, this is how we're doing it differently. This is how we're doing it better than anyone else, and being able to really showcase and demonstrate, why that is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Also, grant research that becomes really important. Too many people, again, they look at a grant, they find it somewhere on the internet and they apply, but they haven't done due diligence and actually researching that organization to again make sure that there's a match between the missions. So whether or not you hire someone to do the research, that's part of the services that we provide, or if you're doing research yourself, there's many different grant portals and websites that you can use to discover grants. Either way, make sure you're doing the research so that the grant that you're going after aligns with what your mission is, because the grant research part of it is really, really important.
Hmm. I'm glad you said that. But let me go back for 1 second because you mentioned um, grants are really, really competitive. So, being that the landscape has changed, I'm thinking you would say that they're even more competitive now because of COVID. There's more out there, but
There's more out there. It's even more competitive now, especially for small businesses, because now we know that they're available, right? And
mhm,
so, whereas before you didn't have a rush of small businesses applying for grants, but now that we know that there's a plethora of grants available, the competition is stiffer because so many nonprofits too went out of business. Small businesses went out of business. We're in the recovery stage of the pandemic. Now, we're not over it, but we're in the recovery stage. So you have, absolutely more organizations vying for money because they either want to restart because they had to go out of business, or they're still just trying to survive now. So it is more competitive than it ever has. But again, the opportunities are greater, especially for small organizations, for small businesses.
and when you talk about that research, what are some tips that you offer for the audience in regards to doing the research and searching for grants?
Mhm. So when you're doing research, one of the most important things that you have to do is make absolutely sure that you are aligning to the areas of interest for that particular foundation. If you, for example, are a fashion designer, but you're researching, you see that there's a grant available for someone who gives uh, funding to a veterans organization or youth development, that's not going to be a match for you. So you have to do your due diligence and do the research and research the funder to make sure that again there's an alignment. And I keep mentioning the word mission statement and alignment. That's only because it's so important. It starts with your mission statement. Know what it is so that
Mhm.
you know for sure what it is that you're asking for, so that when you do your research you are confident that you're going to attract an organization that believes in what you're doing and is willing to fund what it is that you're providing in terms of your services.
Got it. And I just want to throw a plug in there for anyone listening. I'm talking to someone who has secured $17 million in funding via grants. She has an incredible class. I've taken her course. I took a grant writing course many years ago, but this topped it. It made it
You.
easy to understand. So, and if you take the course, well, I don't know right now, she'll tell you. But when I took the course, you get a plethora of information that will help you research for grants. So I just wanted to
Yes.
throw that in there because it's been very beneficial to me.
Thank you. Thank you. And something else I wanted to mention about the research is that start local.
Mm,
Start with your local foundations and your local funders. A lot of people want to just automatically start with the national foundations, but look at who's funding in your area of interest in your local municipality or your county or even your state, because you'll have a better chance of securing the funding from organizations that kind of live and breathe where you are located. So, start local with trying to get resources and then expand out. It'll be a little bit easier to secure the funding. And then that way, when you are ready to expand nationally, if you have received grants, you can say, look, I do have various organizations that believed in my mission and they funded me. So it's best that when you're doing that research, don't forget to look at some of those local foundations and local organizations. And while you're researching, don't just look for foundations. There are corporations, banks. I always talk about in my webinars how banks are one of the largest providers of grants. People think that banks are only for loans, but banks are one of the largest providers of grant money. So don't forget to look at your corporations and your banks that are in your local area. Maybe there are some organizations that are headquartered where you are. Seek them also for grants in addition to the foundations.
Okay. And when we talk grants, especially in the face of COVID, are there grants that require repayment? And under what are some of the conditions that repayment would be required?
So that's a really interesting statement. So before the PPP grant slash loan, right, came about, grants are typically known for being an entity, amount of money that you don't pay back. So typically you're not paying back a grant. However, there are some conditions where grants become repayable, and it's typically because you did not somehow follow the directions or the requirements of that grant application. So, for example, we know with the PPP, if you were maybe not supposed to receive the PPP money or the PPP grant, now you have to pay it back. It becomes a
Mhm.
loan. That's very rare. However, in other circumstances, let's say you did receive a grant, it should not be repayable because grants are not paid back. However, if you misuse the funds, let's say that in the grant application, you wrote that you were going to apply the money for technology, but when you got the actual receipts, when you got the money, you decided you were going to apply it to your staff. Well, in that particular instance, the foundation and the provider of the grant has every right to ask you to either repay the grant or to return the grant money. So you have to be absolutely sure that you are spending the grant money in the same area for which you've written it in that application. That becomes critical.
And I know someone is listening to this asking, how will they know? They have the right to check on you, correct? Is that correct?
Well, it is actually your requirement to provide a grantee report. So, anytime you receive a grant from a foundation or an organization, you are required to provide a grantee report. Now, the timeline differs based on the organization. So, some
Hmm.
organizations require you to provide maybe a 6 month report or a report within a year of you receiving the funds. Typically, it's within a year of you receiving the funding, but you have to provide that report indicating exactly how you spent the money. And the last thing you want to do is provide a report indicating that you didn't spend it in the manner for which you wrote the grant, because the last thing you want to do is have to return the grant money. So spend the
Mm.
money the way in which you wrote you were going to spend it in that grant application, and then you won't have any issues.
So when this is such good information, and anybody I want to share with you, I know that there's a delay. Antoinette, hi. With LinkedIn, if I put it in the chat, it won't feed. They have to fix that. Um, we will take questions, so feel free because we're, as we're talking, feel free to put the questions in because there's a delay. And at the end of the conversation, I will present those questions to Linda. So when we're talking about grants, and we're talking about the research, as you mentioned, in fashion, I tend to take, I realize there's a strategy to it. So are there any, like I look at fashion and I address fashion as an art.
Mhm.
When you look at fashion and you look at grants, are there any tips or things that you can think of or share, or any certain organizations that might specifically want to fund a fashion organization?
So what I have found is that it's real when you're doing your grant search. Typically, you're right. That is the closest category would
Mm-hmm.
be art. But I have found that when you put in that art category, you hardly ever see fashion. So they consider arts to be if it's a musical or drama or the visual arts, but rarely will you see fashion. This is where you need to do further grant research. And this is one of the reasons why it often pays to have a professional organization do your grant research for you, because they know how to do the deep dive. They know how to keep researching until they come up with possible grants. So, what I have organizations do that are in some form of fashion, there's a couple of ways in which you can actually discover grants. One, let's say you're a woman owned business. You can seek grants for women owned businesses. And then, if the grant, for example, just wants to support a woman owned business and they're not specific about what that area could be, you
Hmm.
can certainly talk about the fact that, okay, this is your platform as a designer and you need resources. So that's one way around it. Another way is to seek out the retailers. There are several retailers that provide grants for those who are entering the fashion industry. And so I actually wrote down a few of them specifically that provide either fellowships or grants to those in fashion. One is the Tory Burch Foundation.
Yes.
They have a grant. For those of you who are designers of jewelry, there's the Halstead grant. That's all they do is provide
Mm.
grant money for those who create accessories or jewelry. Cartier provides a grant specifically for um, women who are business owners, and you could certainly again talk about your particular industry. Now, the Levi Strauss Company has a grant program. The Amber grants for women, they provide about $25,000 every single month for women owned organizations. So, again, you talk about what your platform is. It's not specifically for those in fashion, but it is for women owned businesses.
Mm.
Um, Third Love, they do provide grants specifically for fashion designers. The Sarah Blakely Foundation provides grants specifically for fashion designers. And for Black fashion designers, there is a fund called the Icon 360 Grant Fund, and it is money that is provided specifically for Black fashion designers. So again, I think this is why you really have to kind of know what you're doing when you're researching, because sometimes it's not so evident. It's one of the reasons why sometimes you do want to maybe hire a company to do the grant research for you. But yes, to answer your question, there are absolutely grants available specifically for those in the fashion industry, which is great.
Mm. I know this will be a clip that I share because everybody needs to hear what you just said. Thank you for sharing that. And talking fashion, you love fashion. You use fashion as a tool.
I
I
do.
mean, you're so everybody, we're segueing in, and I just want you to know Linda is a body positivity advocate, and she founded Cultured Curves to cater to the plus size woman. Talk about that because some of the topics you cover are fashion,
Mhm.
lifestyle, beauty, and inspiration. You cover fashion weeks, and then you offer freestyle consultations. So tell us about the genesis and the focus, which I've talked a little bit about it, but you get a little bit more in depth in cultured curves.
Absolutely. So, culture curves, that is my passion. Grant writing, that's that, and grant research, that's the job that I do. But my love, my passion is absolutely fashion, and it is for the plus size woman. So, culture curves is about sophisticated style, fashion, and beauty for curvy women. I say over 50, but any mature curvy woman who wants to look good, who wants to feel good. I started it because there's a void in the fashion industry for curvy women, but especially curvy women over 50. So we know there's been like this explosion in the fashion industry for curvy women. We see women like Ashley Graham, who's on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and Lizzo, who's on the cover of Vogue. And so there's been great strides in the fashion industry for women with curves, for plus size women. But the more mature woman seems to still be left out of the conversation. And that's me. That's my demographic. That's who I speak to. I'll be 60 years old next year. So the woman who is, in her late 40s and in her 50s, we're stylish. We want to look good. We want to be able to buy clothes that, represent who we are. We're not trying to dress like we're 19 years old. We're not. And so, unfortunately, too often, what we're finding in retail is this absolute almost obsession with youth in terms of even the kinds of clothing that's offered to curvy women. Again, we have a certain aesthetic. you know, and sometimes is more traditional, sometimes is more conservative. But we want to be sexy too. We want to wear beautiful clothes and feel great, but we're still not, trying to dress as if, we're a teenager. So we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to fit our aesthetic, and there just seems to be a void. And that's one of the reasons why I started Culture Curves. That and the idea that we also, a lot of us, a lot of women who are plus size, especially as we get older, suffer from a lack of self-esteem. We are inundated with images that don't look like us, that
Mm-hmm.
communicates to us that once you get older you don't matter. Go in a corner, be silent, you don't have anything to say, just put on a moo and be happy.
Oh, wow.
But that's just not the reality. And so many women that I speak to that come to me who don't know how to dress their bodies, who don't have an idea of how to shop for their shapes or where to shop for their shapes. And so it can be depressing. And so part of Culture Curves, part of the website, is the idea of really providing inspiration and motivation to make women feel good about themselves no matter their size. And you can be on a journey towards whether it's greater health, greater wellness. But at the end of the day, I want you to still love what you see when you look in the mirror. Even though you're wanting to change it, it needs to start from a place of love, because we know if it starts from a place of hate, that can go to a really, really dangerous thing. And so I want, everyone's transformation to start from a place of love. And that's why I also give various speaking engagements and workshops that really deal with this concept of body positivity, which really isn't just for, plus size women.
Mm-hmm.
I remember speaking at one particular event, and afterwards, a young lady came up to me and she was literally distraught. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, the way you're dressed is so wonderful. I don't know what to do with my body. I had a child, so I don't know what to do, with these curves. I don't know how to dress my body." And she was maybe like a size 6, but it was a different body than she was accustomed to. And so the issue of being able to love your body and move forward, is not just for plus size women, but that's the demographic that I speak to in the Culture Curves blog. So if you want to know how to shop, where to shop, how to dress your best, but also get a dose of inspiration and motivation, that's what Culture Curves is about.
And that's what you're doing right now, serving it. I just for everyone, and again, if you're on LinkedIn, it probably will not come through. They have to fix that connection. But it's culturedcurves.com. Um, Everyone else you should get it, but it's cultured, cultured curves.com, and that's with an S. So as we're talking about that, let's talk about some of the tips for ensuring that I like the way you said it, how you have the fiercest fit of clothing for your body. So I'm going to share one of the items that Linda has here. Talk about this in determining, you know, if you're a curvy woman, and I have another one too, but I'll
So,
let you talk to that.
so this is really great because I preach fit. Like, to me, looking great in your clothes is all about how your clothes fit you. And it's about being able to determine what body shape you have. There's 4 typical body shapes that women fall into: pear, apple, hourglass, and banana. And how great your clothes look on you depends on what type of body shape you have. There are clothes that look better on pear shapes. I'm a pear shape where your bottom is much heavier than your waist or your bust. The apple shape, she has a larger middle. The hourglass is more proportioned. The banana shape, the waist isn't as defined. So when you go shopping for clothes, there are clothes that simply, some will look better on an apple shape, some will look better on a pear. So that's one of the first things I have women to do, is take their measurements. There's a little calculator in culturecurves.com where you can put in your measurements and decide, what shape am I, and then you go from there. And I assure you that it makes shopping for clothes so much easier, because I give you the various kinds of clothes that look better based on your body shape. So, for example, for pear, because we are heavier on the bottom, we want to balance what we're wearing. So, we may have chunkier jewelry on the top so that we can balance our bodies, or we may want to make sure that we are wearing clothing that provides definition to the waist because our waist is smaller. So we want to be able to showcase the waist. So I provide different suggestions as to what kinds of clothes you can shop for, based on your body shape, because it is important to looking great. The clothes that you see in a store was created on what we call fit models, which is she's usually one size. And it's so difficult knowing that women come in all different shapes and sizes. So don't think that you're the only one that shops and can't find clothes that really fit your body. That's probably because they weren't cut for your body. And
Mhm.
so part of what I do in the blog is to help you to determine what to look for, what shape clothes to look for that will really bring out your shape regardless of what it is, because it does matter.
And who are some of the designers that are serving the curvy woman?
There are a lot. So I have a post that literally highlights like 30 different African American designers that have a significant plus size line. So these are just a few. I mean, you have
Yeah.
Tyler, Curvy Bombshell. She has incredible lingerie. Um, I said Renee Tyler, Thunder Thighs, right? She has these, unbelievable leggings that's created. So
Yeah.
she's another designer. Courtney Christian Amashan has more kind of designer clothing, and that's what's nice. You get a mix. So there are some designers that provide clothing that are more casual. Others provide runway pieces. Other designers provide clothing that's for, let's say, a formal wear or wedding wear. But there's several that I could name. Victor Glamad is one. Again, he's more of a knitwear. He has just fabulous knitwear. So there's so many that is available. Renee Tyler is very well known as a designer for plus size women. Z by Zenvara has an incredible line of clothes. I mean, there's so many that I could go through. Some of them, I'm certainly familiar with because I wear their clothes. Courtney O'Neill, I'm just in love with, and there are others. So what we typically see when we think of plus size, we think of your Lane Bryants, right? We think
Mhm.
of the Ashley Stewarts, and they're great, right? But there are so many other designers, Black designers especially, that are designing clothes specifically for women with curves, and they're out there, and they want and deserve our support. So it's great to have the retail stores for sure, but there really is a wide variety, and there are some women that are now getting their designs in retail stores. I know Nina Parker now has her collections at Macy's, and Tabitha Brown has a brand new collection that's starting June 11th. I believe she's going to be at, I think is it Target? I want to make sure.
I think it is Target. I think so.
She has a new, yes. So Tabitha Brown, right? Her new collection is launching at Target June 11th. So that's right around the corner. Tamala Mann, the gospel singer, has a new line of clothing. So we're seeing not only more designers, but we're seeing more designers being represented in your typical retail stores, which is great.
And speaking of that, you have a guide, 25 plus size stores you may not know. How can people get that guide?
Yeah, so just go to culturecurves.com. You sign up for the e-newsletter, and when you sign up for the e-newsletter, you will get a copy of that guide for free, because again, people think of just, two or three stores when they want to find somewhere to shop for plus size clothes, but there are so many. And locally as well, we have some great stores here in the Cleveland area, that also provides fashion, styles by imagination and fashions by Fowler. So look locally, but these particular stores, you can order online, and they're represented all over the country. And it just gives you some diversity, because there really are more than just like the usual suspects.
Mhm. What do you say to designers or stores who may be considering being more inclusive by serving curvy women? What words do you have for them, and as well as telling them how they will be empowering people, how they will be enhancing our society, or anything else that you want to say to them?
Well, the first thing I would want to say is that if they're serving the plus size market, they're serving the average American woman because the average American woman is now a size 16. So she's curvy. So if you're not taking advantage of this demographic, you're losing out on money, on revenue, because you need to be inclusive. Again, regardless of our age, we want to look great in our clothes. We want clothing that's made with, great materials. We want different designs. We want um, garments, whether or not we're going to a wedding or some casual affair. We want to be able to look good. And so, one, they're helping their own bottom line, but also this is a huge market now. So, it would be to their benefit to serve a market that has traditionally been, underserved. There's still room out there for designers, especially your New York designers, your runway designers, because we still see, unfortunately, too often in the New York fashion shows, we're not seeing plus size women on the runway. And it's a great loss for them because there's a significant amount of money to be made, especially women in my demographic who are, in their late 50s. We have a higher disposable income than even our younger counterparts. So they're literally leaving money on the table by not designing for us. And so they need to be able to really provide clothing, provide fashion for a huge segment of society because this is the reality. This is where we are. And we no longer want to be excluded.
I have some, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Someone says, thank you, Carla and Linda. Uh,
Oh,
Charmaine says, thank you for a wonderful session. I am going to also share how you can connect with Linda as well. I'm going to talk to her in a moment about things that she has upcoming. I'll put those in the chat as well, but I wanted to put this here. So if you want to connect with her on grants, you can. Linda, please tell everybody about your services as far as grants, as well as I think you mentioned already the speaking on body positivity, but please share that with everyone. And again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put those in as well.
so absolutely. So in the area of grants, we do grant research for you. We do grant coaching to make sure that you have accountability. We provide free grant writing webinars. I have two coming up, which I'll talk about. And we also provide a grant writing course, grant writing for non-writers, keys to winning grant proposals that really takes you literally soup to nuts to how do you prepare for the process of writing grants? How do you write every part of that grant application? But also, what are the things that you can do so that your grant application gets noticed? Like being able to set up a meeting with the foundation or the funder, which becomes critical. So it's a soup to nuts resource that really teaches you how to grant write, so that you can really provide money that will assist you in your efforts, that will diversify your revenue so that you don't have to bootstrap, you don't have to rely solely on loans. Grants are free. And so, definitely, by all means, being that we're in an environment where there's more grants available now than ever before, even in 2020, there was over $88 billion worth of grants provided, and this year it's even higher. So people, the money is there. It's about being able to know the process and know how to get it. And the grant writing course is one avenue for doing that. So we have the course, and again, we do offer the grant research. And so you can certainly contact me at lpv@lapov.com for more information. You can go to the website lapov.com for additional information. And yes, I also have two free grant writing webinars coming up next week. So on Wednesday, we have a grant writing webinar for Black owned organizations. And then on Thursday, we have a free grant writing webinar for women owned organizations. And again, I do this to give back to the community. These are completely free webinars. People who know me know I'm not about fluff. So I give you the meat, I give you the tea, I even give you the teapot. And
Look, I can tell you she's telling you the truth. She is telling you the truth.
you get information, you get good information so that by the end of that webinar, you have some skills, you have some tools to be able to go out and secure the bag. So you definitely do not want to miss the webinars that are coming up next week. Now, in October, I am speaking on body positivity at a health and wellness retreat in St. Martin. So we can also provide you with information about this women's retreat. That is a 5-day retreat in St. Martin, and my portion of it, I'll be talking about the importance of body positivity. So you're welcome to join us for just a fabulous 5-day retreat. And I have a book coming out that's been in the works for 2 years. It's going to be the Culture Curves guide to fashion for curvy women, for mature curvy women, and it's going to be due out in August. So definitely, if you go to the Culture Curves website, sign up for the e-newsletter, and you'll be one of the first people to know when that book releases. I've done my research. There's nothing else like it on the market that really talks about the importance of style and fashion for mature, curvy women. So I am super excited about the book, and hope you will be too, and want you to be one of the first to know about it. So be sure you go to culturecurves.com to sign up for the e-newsletter.
Now, everyone, I just dropped the information that she shared with you into the chat. I put all of it there. Feel free to go back. Like I said, with YouTube, sorry, LinkedIn, I don't think it connects, but it is definitely on the YouTube feed for this. I'll put the link in our event gallery page later this evening so you can access it. Belinda, and people who want to connect with you for consultations, you offer free consultation.
I offer free style consultations. So be sure again, there you go to Linda at culturecurves.com, and sign up for a free style consultation. And also be sure to follow me on Instagram at Culture Curves, the number one. I'm always providing different fashion looks, um, different style tips on the Instagram page, but definitely for more in-depth information about style and how to dress your body, there's like dozens and dozens and dozens of posts on the culturecurves.com website. It really is a tremendous resource. And I just found out just today that the Culture Curves blog has been nominated as a semifinalist for the Full Size Fashion Figure Award. So I am just
Yay.
over the moon that I've been nominated for this award, because
Yes.
my goal is to just provide this service for women who just want to look and feel their best, um, who are mature, because we're not sitting in anybody's corner. We're vivacious and we have something to say, and we want to look great doing it. So um, it's important.
Amazing. Congratulations on that. Ah,
Thank
oh
you.
my goodness. Well, this has been amazing. If anyone, like I mentioned, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. Linda, I do want to ask you though, as we're closing, you've said some powerful things for the woman, for the curvy woman. What words do you want to leave food for thought for those individuals who may be facing challenges with self esteem? I know what that's like. I've faced it in my life. Who may be facing challenges with finding the clothing to give them that fierce fit. What words do you want to leave with them?
That you are wonderfully and fearfully made. Like that. That's it. And it doesn't depend upon your size. It doesn't depend upon what the number on a scale says. You are still loved. People love you for who you are. You may have family members, you may have friends who love you for who you are. So when you look in the mirror, understand what that love is about. Know that you deserve, you deserve to love yourself. because that's where it starts. And that's one of the things that I always try to share with people. It has to start with love. You know, whatever journey you decide to embark upon, do it from a place of love, because you're worth it. And oftentimes we just have to shut out the noise, right? That tries to prevent us from believing that, based on unrealistic expectations that society may put upon us, that we don't look a certain way, we're not a certain size, we don't. Um, the number on the scale doesn't say what it needs to say for us to believe that we are valued and we're valuable, but we are. So that's what I would say, that you really are fearfully and wonderfully made, just as you are. And that's important.
Mm, that is amazing. Thank you, Linda, for this incredible
Thank
conversation.
you. Thank you, Carla. This has been great. And I look forward again to answering any questions that the audience might have. Definitely reach out to me at the emails. I hope to see some of you at the free webinar next week for sure, because the grant money is available, but also, if you want style tips, come to the blog. Um, and there's a lot of information in there for you. But this has been great. This has been an honor, Carla. Thank you again so much for inviting me to be part of this space.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are part of our empowerment team. So I thank you for your service. And anyone, I have placed the information, in case you didn't get to write it down, I've placed all of the information in the chat. You can go to the YouTube feed. You can find it there. For anyone listening to this later, you will probably see it in the feed. And but if you have any questions, and you did, if for some reason it didn't come through, I know LinkedIn it doesn't, feel free to reach out to me so I can make sure that you get it, because I have all of the information, the links and everything. So with that said, we're going to wish everyone a happy Wednesday, and tune in next Wednesday at 3 p.m. as I will be talking with Ashley Cloud, our fashion lawyer. She is going to be talking about all things fashion. A lot of times people think it's just intellectual property, but it's so much more. So until next week, have a good night, everyone.